Good morning, class. Okay, I know you did class last week. You started a new course to do with spark ignition management systems, okay? And so you've done part A, I believe. It's a 3-week course. So we're into week 2, okay? So we'll start with some theory. I have a little bit of a practical exercise, whether we get to it today or tomorrow, but we'll be doing a practical assessment today. You'll have 3 different assessments, but we'll definitely, before you go by Friday, we'll definitely do at least 1, maybe 2 assessments. I had a box of stuff that I meant to bring and I didn't, which is really annoying for me because I wanted to use some of that stuff for our assessment, but I'll certainly bring it next week, okay? So today, I noticed on the board, was this from your class, 3, was it?
Yep.
So obviously Sam talked to you about the procedures. I call them protocols. Protocols of going through a systematic way of doing our diagnostics. And it always starts, and he's right putting the customer up the top. We always start with the customer. I want to go over it a little bit because I want you to get my take, how I process what we do when we have a diagnostic problem. And it may differ a little bit from, because I have actually added a few things in there that I didn't see when Sam put that on the board. So let's go through it quickly. So the steps, he calls it diagnostic steps, I call it diagnostics protocol. Protocol is a stronger word because it's something that we have to, it's like a rule that we can't not do. We must always cover these things and we must not miss any of these things. And I think there's an order that I like to see, and he's put an order in, but I've added to that order, so I wanted to talk to you about what I've added. So yes, we definitely need to talk to the customer. Why do you think we need to talk to the customer?
To know the problem.
To know the problem.
Yeah.
Because who knows the problem best?
The
The customer knows the symptoms, so we need to be sure we feed off the customer as much as we can. I go as far as say, let's interrogate the customer, meaning let's just draw out everything we can from the customer. You know, does this happen when it's cold only, or does it happen when it's only hot? Does it happen at a certain speed? Does it happen, you know, or is it a hot day when it happens? All these bits of information will help us. There was a time when I had a car, it was an earlier model car, it had a timing belt replaced and it had this problem in the transmission, okay? The customer told me he had the timing belt replaced because I fed that information. So I always like to know what's the history of the car, because part of interrogating the customer is also finding out, has someone else worked on the car? Have you had recent work done? Have it been serviced recently? How regular are you at getting your services, and so on, if you don't know the car? So we need to get all that information. Am I talking too quickly?
No, it's all good.
Everyone understanding? Tell me if I need to slow down.
All good.
I'm used to talking quickly, so I understand some of you might not understand me if I talk too quick. So sorry if I am. So look, you need to ask the customer all these things. Now this timing belt had been replaced. To me, it's not related to the transmission in my mind, but I still noted it down that the timing belt had been replaced. Anyhow, whatever the symptom was, we did some research and something popped up. This was an older car that you actually had to pull the dashboard out and swap a wire from one spot to another every time you change the timing belt to turn the light off for the timing belt, right? Somebody had had a timing belt done and they reset the timing light on the dash and put the wire in the wrong spot. And when they did that, the transmission played up exactly the way this one was. So that bit of information I would have overlooked, except that I knew he had the timing belt replaced. And that's what would happen with this vehicle. It's a simple matter of changing the wire. So that's why I say it's important to get even unrelated information from the customer. So just keep that in mind. With all that, yes, collect all that information and make sure we document that information. We need to do that. Yes, we definitely need to confirm that that problem is the problem. There was a time, like we would always follow something like this, right? But there was a time I didn't follow it once because the customer needed to get to the bus stop or the train station really quickly, running out of time. And he was adamant that we would hear the problem. He had a noise in the car and we'd hear the problem straight away, he said. When we got in the car and started the car up, the belts were squealing. So we reported that to the customer. We put all these new belts on his car, gave the car back to him. He wasn't happy because that wasn't the noise he was talking about. He had a different noise. So had I followed this, and confirm the fault, and not just confirm the fault, but confirm the fault with the customer, I would have been on the right track. So that's why it's so important that, you know, we follow different rules. And my rule was to always, where possible, and that was most of the time, let the customer go for a road test with whoever, whether it be the mechanic working on it or someone else, service advisor, but we needed to confirm the problem with the customer. And that's a good reason because of that experience that I had, okay? So we learn by our experiences, we learn by our mistakes. Okay, what Sam didn't write down was, I always do, like he's got runner diagnostics. For me, running a scan tool on the car is not a diagnostic. A diagnostic is where you find the problem, okay? And you do things to find the problem. The scan tool isn't a diagnostic tool in the sense that it'll tell you what's wrong with the car. It will show you the effects of what's wrong with the car. So when you put your scan tool on, I do a full scan of the vehicle, of all the modules, everything. I look for all the fault codes. And then with those fault codes, I will record all those fault codes. I won't clear them at this point in time, I'll just record them. I will look at freeze frame data. Who knows what freeze frame data is? Only one of you?
Freeze frame.
Freeze frame. What's freeze frame?
ECU will record the fault.
Record the
From the
fault.
timing.
It records a lot of the values of different PIDs. PIDs are the information you get on the scan tool of all those different things when the fault code happens.
Yeah.
Once you clear the faults, all that information goes. So it's important to actually record all that before you clear a code. Make sure you look at that. It will help you if the car is playing up at a certain temperature. It will help you to understand, well, maybe I've got to get the car at that temperature to get the fault myself, or different things, or a different speed, or so on. So yeah, we want to collect all that information. After that, we've got all that information from the customer, from what we've done with the scan tool, from us confirming the fault. We have to then collate all that information and we evaluate that information. From that information, we start to formulate a direction of what we're going to do, okay, as far as how we're going to diagnose the problem. What I would do in my business to get to that point, right, I would be telling the customer, you're going to pay me $200. It doesn't have to be $200, but you'll pay me a sum of money. We're not talking about time here. We're talking about, for this, you pay that, okay? So for that reason, the customer's expectations, he knows before we even know what's wrong with the car, he's going to spend $200. He knows that, okay? The customer won't be upset. You spent $200. I've got to a point now where I've evaluated everything. So now I have to report to the customer and get his authorization to go further. Because we don't know, you know, if for example, we've got a fault code with the airflow sensor, okay? We don't know at this point, is it the airflow sensor? Is it a electrical problem where there's a wiring problem to the airflow sensor? Is it a vacuum leak that's causing the airflow to misread? Is it a computer problem? We don't know any of that. All we know is we've got direction now. And we felt the problem. It was hesitating when it was starting up cold and driving it wasn't running right. Fuel trims were out. But now we know that the cause of that is related to the airflow area. We don't know exactly what it is yet. We then have some information to give to the customer. We tell the customer, you've got a problem in this area, okay? We need now to use my oscilloscope and my voltmeter. We need to do some more tests. We need to do some more diagnostics so that we can pinpoint the problem. Now, you will put a value on that. You will probably put maybe, you might say $300. I'm not saying that's it. It can be any figure, but you have to cover yourself and we have to make profit. We're not putting a time factor. It might take us 15 minutes to earn $300. But you remember, your scan tool costs you a lot of money. Your software for your scan tool costs you a lot of money. Your oscilloscope costs you a lot of money. What about your expertise? There's so much expertise that you're learning that is your value. You know, your value. No one can tell you what your value. There's a story of a guy back in the early days who used to tune organs. Right? He there was in England, in London. there was the big pipe organ in the cathedral, and no one in England were able to tune it properly. There was always this problem with it, and it was out of tune. Anyhow, this guy was an expert from France, I don't know where, but he offered his services. He said, I'll fix that for £300, which might be $3,000 today or probably more. But he said, I'll fix it for a huge amount of money in those days, right? And they said, yeah, fine, we've got to get it fixed. He was in there for 5 minutes, fixed the problem, walked out and asked for his money. They said, no, we're not paying you that. Yes, you are. That's what I agreed to. So they paid him because he had the expertise. No one else could fix it. You might be the only person who can fix a problem. You've got the expertise. So that's got to be worth something. That's got to be worth the value. I'm teaching you some business stuff here, okay? So just take that on board. So we talk to the customer then and get their authorization to run some more diagnostics. Once we've done that, okay, we need to then report back to the customer once more. All right, you've got a wiring problem in your airflow sensor. Okay, it's going to take, I don't know, half an hour to fix. So we're going to charge you, $85 to fix it. But you've also paid me $200, $300, plus the $85 for fixing it. The fixing's the easy part. Getting to the point where the problem was, to find that problem, was the hard part. We can't underestimate the time it takes to get to that problem when we're doing diagnostics. If you think about, some people think the fixing is the only time that you can charge a customer. That's not true. That's not true, because you need all the expertise, all the equipment to get to that point where you can fix it. It's back to front to mechanical. When we're dealing with mechanical, often we can see a worn ball joint or a loose wheel bearing, and the diagnostics doesn't really come into it much because it's really quick and easy. But when it comes to electronics and computerized systems, there's a lot of time involved just to pinpoint what's right. If we go and change the airflow sensor, because they are scan tool, if we skip a lot of this, we skip all our different stages because our scan tool said that we've got a fault with the airflow sensor, and we just go and throw an airflow sensor. We've said to the customer, I want to put an airflow sensor to fix your car, and he gives you authorization. You fit the new airflow sensor. Guess what? It was a wiring problem, it didn't fix it. Now the mud's on your face. Now you can't go back and tell him you've got to fix the problem anyhow, and you're up the creek without a paddle, you might say. So it's important not to skip these points. The other thing you need to remember, never ever tell the customer, when you've diagnosed something, never ever tell the customer, I will put this part in, or I'll fix this wiring up, and this will fix your problem. Never ever do that. Why? Because there's so many reasons, okay? So many reasons that there could be other flow-on problems. You've found one problem. What if there's two problems? Sometimes there are. Cars are complicated now, okay? So what you tell the customer, I've got to this diagnostic point now where I found there's a wiring problem. I need to fix that wiring problem. It's going to cost you $85 for me to fix this problem on top of what else I've spent. But I can't do any further testing to finish off my diagnostics until I fix this problem, okay? What does that do? That allows an open door. You fix that problem and you find out there's a third problem or second problem, okay? You've got an opportunity now. You've got an opportunity to actually go back to the customer. Now they've fixed up that wiring problem, that part is working. I've now found you've also got a broken induction pipe on your air cleaner that needs to be replaced as well. Now that we've been able to do more testing, you'll need that, and that will cost you X. The customer will not be happy, but he won't be angry because you've prepared him that there could be other problems. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Make a lot of sense, doesn't it? Okay. Now, once we have finished the diagnostics, we report to the customer gives us authorization, and we've assumed everything's running okay now, we have to retest everything. That's very true. We have to run the same test we did before, making sure we have fixed the problem. The other thing is, we want to give it a good road test, we want to give it another good scan of the scan tool, because we might have accidentally induced another problem or introduced another problem. So we have to be careful. So do that. Give our final report to the job card and give it to the front counter for them to write it up, of course. And in our report, we might have seen some other things. We need to write that down to cover ourselves, okay? The customer might have been warned about something, but we need it in writing. Anything that we notice when we're fixing a car, make sure it's in writing. Otherwise the customer will come back at us, I can guarantee it. I fixed up a fuel pump once, and it was all corroded, and I had to put new fuel lines on, injectors, everything, the whole fuel system, because it was using ethanol fuel. It was an older car and it wasn't meant to have ethanol fuel, and got a lot of moisture from the air in the system and corroded everything up. Fixed it all up, anyhow, and no fault of mine. The alternator packed in next week, the alternator. So he came back to blame me for the alternator. Well, the alternator wasn't anything to do with what we did, but the customer was pretty insistent it was the alternator. But you know, at the end of the day, I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. But had I seen other problems that I didn't, if I had known the alternator was playing up and I hadn't told the customer, if I told the customer on the day and he came back, I'd have more grounds then to say, well, we warned you about that. And here it is on writing. I had nothing in writing, of course, because it wasn't a problem. And that happens sometimes. Human nature, people will want to blame you for anything if they can, or if they think they can. But anyhow, make sure we clean up our areas, that's very true. So really, I've pretty much go along with everything that Sam's written down there. I just wanted to add my little bit where I put a few more things in there. Does that make sense? Okay, turn off that video, please.